I want to sing a song that everyone here should know. Kind of sounds like this. We are the champions, my friend. There we go, come on! We keep on fighting to the end. We are the champions. We are the champions. No time for losing, 'cause we are the champions. Come on, Philly! Of the world. Go Birds!
E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles! The Birds are champions of the world! Jordan Mailata bringing us in from the steps, the rocky steps themselves in Philadelphia. My, have we been looking forward to get this podcast going. It is our reaction to the Super Bowl win for the Philadelphia Eagles. We thought about it earlier in the week, and we were going to try and rush it in to get it out there, but we said no. Look, this is an incredibly special podcast for a number of reasons. Not only is it the first time the Eagles have won since we started the Next Man Up podcast and now the British and Irish Eagles, but also we wanted some time to get everyone together, get Mick back on the podcast, make sure all four of us were here, and make sure we did it. We had enough time to research and do this podcast justice. And before I go into introductions, I just want to say welcome to my three illustrious co-owners of the British and Irish Eagles: Phil Fence Mountain Stevens, Mick the Beard Shagger McGibbon, and Tony the Brain Brewerton. How are you, gentlemen, before we kick off?
So good, man. So good.
Yeah, can't be any better than this, can it?
I'm trying hard not to scream, man, because my kids are on the stairs. But fuck, we won, man. We won.
Mick, you've got more hair. You got more hair than the last time we had you on the British and Irish Eagles podcast. I'm loving it. Are you going to grow out the old?
I don't have the stress of being on the podcast anymore. It's getting a bit too much
Right,
for me. All the fame and all that. I was losing my hair, mate. So.
Absolutely love it. This is one of our first live podcasts for a long time. So we will not apologize when we swear, because we most certainly will. Right, let's get into the agenda that we're going to have today. We're going to do a quick introduction to the overall victory the Eagles had against the Kansas City Chiefs last Sunday. We're going to touch on some of the doubters. What? We're going to go through what each and every one of us on the podcast did last Sunday. We're going to throw it over to Tony to tell us what his experience was like in NOLA last Sunday as he watched the Eagles win live. We're going to give you an update on what our last Sunday / Monday morning / Monday evening celebrations were like in London. Mick, you're going to tell us how it all went down in Glasgow. We're then going to be joined, if by then, by Gio the podcaster. He's going to join us for a 15-20 minute Q&A session. Really looking forward to that. Get his thoughts. He was also there live at the game. And then, of course, you guys know the usual segment in this podcast: the good, the bad, and the damn right sexy, which is now called the sexy, oh, fuck that sexy, oh my God, it's all sexy part of the podcast, which we're going to get into because it was just a beautiful moment for all of us. We'll obviously get into our Loch Lomond moment of the game. And there are a lot of contenders for that. I swear we've written essays and essays of notes. There's probably about 3 or 4 articles worth of notes in this podcast. And then we're going to look into the off season, by which time, God knows what time it'll be in the evening or early morning. By the time we get there, there are no restraints on us podcasting tonight time-wise, even though yours truly is flying to Ireland tomorrow. It's not till the afternoon, so it's all good. Without any further ado, let us get into the introduction for this podcast. So, absolute scenes in NOLA as the Eagles emerge victorious in the Chiefs' not own backyard, but they pretty much think it's their backyard, seeing as that they won 2 in a row and they were going for their 3-peat. We didn't just beat the Chiefs. We fucking embarrassed the Chiefs. It was a humiliation. Buried 6 feet underground. They were dead before they could get the last S chant out of an Eagles chant. Now, while the final scoreboard, gang, was 40-22, with the Eagles putting their backups out there, most of us will know, and many of us have commented, that the real score was 34-0 or 40-6. We know that's what the real score was. We're going to get into the sexy, oh my God, that's sexy, and oh shit, it's all sexy later on when we're talking about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and how well Vic Fangio did and how poor Kermit the Frog was and just how wonderful the entire game was. But before we get into that, can I just take a brief moment before I pass over to Tony to talk to us about what it's like in NOLA, to have a word to the doubters out there. We see you, not on this podcast. Not on this podcast. Some people had some reservations on this podcast, but they were founded. There were no doubters on this podcast. There were some who believed more than others at different times of the season, but we're not taking any victory laps on this podcast between the four of us. We're talking about the people out there who said no matter what, the Eagles wouldn't get to the Super Bowl, no matter what, Nick Sirianni couldn't do it, no matter what, Jalen Hurts couldn't do it, the defense wouldn't be good enough to drag them there on their own. Swivel on this, baby. Swivel on this. Most of you are fans of different NFL franchises around the UK and Ireland and in the US. So Eagles fans bask in the glory of a Super Bowl victory, one that no one thought we would win, one that no one thought we would achieve. And my God, could this be a dynasty for years to come for the Birds? Now, what I want to do first is I want to hand it over to my man who was there in the stadium, who was there soaking it all in. We tried very hard not to be jealous of you, Tony, and I think we succeeded. But listen, give us the rundown of what it was like for a man from Scotland over there at the Super Bowl final, watching his Birds win a Super Bowl for the second time.
Well, can I just say about the whole jealousy thing? I was in the stadium watching the game, getting snaps, getting WhatsApp messages from all of you guys in Passyunk and in Glasgow, and I'm thinking, oh man, I wish I was there. So jealousy goes two ways. Some of the scenes from Glasgow, some of the scenes from Glasgow and Passyunk were. Listen, I'm a humble guy, right? I don't normally flex, but I'm telling you this, I'm going to flex the shit right out of this right now. Okay? NOLA was unbelievable. It was off the chain, and I was so fortunate a couple of years back to be in Phoenix, but unfortunate to be in Phoenix as well. And there was a number of ghosts to put to rest, and thank goodness they were, and they well and truly were. And you know what? It didn't even take 4 quarters to do it. But let me quickly run you through my 3 and a bit days in New Orleans. I actually started off with a bit of a flightmare. It was a bit of a disaster for me. I woke up 2:30 on the Friday morning. I was due to be flying Edinburgh Heathrow to Dallas. Woke up at 2:30 to go and get my Edinburgh Heathrow flight, and my Dallas flight had been cancelled. So it was a bit of a nightmare. So driving to the airport, eventually got through to BA and American Airlines. Long story short, after a disaster of them trying to put me through JFK, lo and behold, they came back and said, would you mind flying through Philadelphia? I was like, well, so I think you're going to have to give me an upgrade, but I'll take it.
Right there,
I'll take one for the team. And that was the sign. And honestly, it was a sign. We've spoken about Saquon's birthday, we've spoken about Coop's birthday, we've spoken about the 3 points here and the win, and the 3 points and the win, and this was just, for me, that was it. We're going to win this game. So I flew off to Heathrow to Philly, flying in over the link. Arrival at Philly was just brilliant. I've never been go-birdsed by a customs officer in all my life. So in I go, down to the gate to fly down to New Orleans, and it was just a party. The scenes down there were unbelievable. Why on earth Philadelphia Airport thought it was appropriate to put the direct flight from Philly down to New Orleans 2 games before the Super Bowl next to a bar, I'll never know. It was crazy. So all the way down to New Orleans, there's chanting, there's Eagles going, it was brilliant. And on arrival in New Orleans, you got off the flight to people putting beads over your neck and jazz bands and jambalaya
Do we
and
need to edit this
gumbo.
part of the podcast out? What happened with those beads? We may not need to know, Tony.
Oh, do you know where is all this beads chat from? It's not the first time I've heard beads on a podcast in the last few days. The beads did not go anywhere that they shouldn't have been. So Saturday afternoon, I managed to wangle my way along to the official Eagles friends and family.
Of course he did.
Well, you know, it's a hard life. Somebody's got to do it. And it was awesome. It was awesome. Everyone there from Swoop to Dave Spadero to all the guys that I know from Philly. And then I met my hero. And it was a bit unexpected, but Randall Cunningham was there. Randall's one of the reasons that I'm an Eagles fan. And having stood in line for 20 minutes to meet him, cursing everyone in front of me that was taking longer than 30 seconds to get their photo taken, I then stood for 10, 15 minutes talking to him. And the guy is just incredible. They say that you shouldn't meet your heroes, but my goodness, I'm so glad that I met him. And he was talking to me about being in Glasgow last summer with his daughter Vashti, who's a high jumper for the US Olympics team. His disappointment that she didn't get to jump in the World Indoor Championships. And he was just talking to me about his love for Scotland, and he was just dead engaging. It was just one of these wonderful life experiences that, you know, you've looked at this guy all your life thinking that guy's a legend, and you finally meet him and it turns out he's just as, if not more, a legend that you kind of hoped him to be. Away off down to the NFL fan experience, bumped into Annie Agar on the way. You know, I don't mean to brag, boys, but she did offer me a wee threesome with her and Kay Adams. I had a ticket. I had a ticket for the NFL fan experience, so I blew her off. Didn't take the invite for her to do the same.
There's going to be no acting allowed on this podcast.
I'm just realised we've got 74 people watching this live. I'm like, oh no, I'm talking about threesomes. Yvonne, if my wife, if you're one of them, it's just gone up to 75. Now I'm panicking. My daughter could be on as well now. That's just a joke. Annie Agar didn't invite me with Kay Adams. It was Kay Adams and Colleen Wolfe. It was a foursome.
See that door opening behind them and just bang.
Went to the NFL fan experience, and then it was a Sunday. And you know, Sunday was a bit of a weird day. Kind of woke up early, really excited. You know, it was just about killing time. You just wanted something to happen. So met up with some friends.
And knowing you got no sleep either, so you were probably.
Oh no, I don't know. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare, Liam. So we ended up commandeering this bar in a hotel that was being used by the NFL. So the NFL were all the way doing their thing, and the bar was empty. So there's about 40 of us in this bar. That was our tailgate. The chef hadn't turned up, so we ordered in some pizza, some food, just shot the shit basically. And there's this knocking on the emergency door just at the end of the bar, and turns to the barman and said, "Is that the chef that's not turned?" "Oh, I don't think so. Could be the relief chef." So after a lot of to and froing with this guy, we're saying, "You need to come round the front. You need to come round the front. We're not letting you in. If you're the chef, you need to come round the front, get yourself clocked in." So this guy was pretty pissed off. But anyway, he walks round the side. He walks into the bar. I'm like, "Oh shit, that's Adrian Peterson." So Adrian Peterson, aka the chef, walks into the bar and then proceeds to spend the afternoon with us. And what a great guy he is. Obviously, we got the wee video with his prediction. We spoke about him being the last NFL MVP that was a non quarterback. Just what a great guy. And all he was looking for was a quiet beer. And unfortunately,
he found you.
And he got me for half an hour. And then it was on to the game, and I'm sure we're going to cover the game in many different ways and using many different angles. So I'll not get into that. But what I will share with you is just my lasting memory of the night, and it was must have been about 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and Jake Elliott had just kicked the field goal. It's 37-6. And I wonder how many people that are listening and watching just now, and you guys as well, and Eagles fans all over the world, I wonder what point they allowed themselves to believe that we were actually going to win it.
I'd like
I
to
know,
talk about that for sure.
I
Not
know
right
that,
now, but I definitely want
I know that
to.
Yvonne didn't allow herself. Yvonne's watching it back here. She didn't allow herself to believe it until there was seconds left. Other guys are halfway through the third quarter. They're all partying. The moment that I believed was when Jake Elliott kicked that field goal and we went 37-6 up. That was the moment I allowed myself just that second to pause, and I looked at the scoreboard and I watched everything that was going on around about me. And Liam, you had a moment like this at the NFC Championship game, I think, where you kind of look up and you just think that you're so blessed. You're so blessed to
Yeah.
be an Eagles fan. You're in that moment. But you know what? There was something missing for me, and you guys were missing, and Matthew, my nephew, was missing, and I was missing my wife and my daughter. When you're experiencing one of these things, you want to experience it with someone who is really close to you and you love dearly. So I FaceTimed them, and we had a bit of a moment. And I come off the phone just as Patrick Mahomes was strip sacked. And it was just one of these surreal moments where I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. And that, gentlemen, is my New Orleans experience.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, that moment I had in the NFC Championship game felt similar. But I've already discussed that. So look, let's get on to the next part. We're gonna quickly jump into how we enjoyed the Super Bowl before we get into before Gio joins us on the podcast, and then we'll get into the game itself. So, Phil, me and you met in London around 5:30 on Sunday afternoon. Actually, I was already in London watching Ireland thrash. Scotland in the Six Nations. Just gonna get that in there before before we went on to meet up down in Waterloo. A very short trip from the hotel we were staying in down to Patrick Avenue in Leek Street, and oh my, was Leek Street on fire! Right, whatever about Drysdale's on fire, Leek Street was on fire. Imagine being around the biggest tailgate spot that you've ever been at outside of the link. There's about 2,000 people, and it's just one little tailgate. Because in the Eagles, there's tailgates everywhere. There's about 2,000 people at this tailgate, all rammed into like an old archway under Waterloo train station called Leek Street. For those of you who haven't been, it's full of graffiti from well-known artists, from not so well-known artists. It's always being updated and spray painted all the time. It's an iconic place. And imagine those 2,000 people are squashed in there, right? They're squashed in there with a bar that you can go into, but no one can get into unless you booked. So instead, there was a cinema-sized TV, a live DJ belting out tunes, mobile cheesesteak vans, and everything. This wasn't your normal UK NFL gathering either, right? Where you see a box park or other venues in London where there's a mix mash of fans from different fan bases, even if even with the two teams who are playing. This was 95% birds across everywhere. It was like being in South Philly. Dreams and Nightmares was exploding from the massive speakers that we had going on, passing over the Thames into the night sky. And if you weren't there listening live to this, you could hear it murmur across the streets of London to every Eagles fan's hearts and ears. It was just special. And as we edged closer to the game, myself and Phil did a beer shotgun competition. They allowed me to get on the microphone. God knows why. That went well, apart from the fact that I got in the way of it several times and definitely didn't make it on camera. But other than that, it went well. Two brilliant contestants ended up winning a bottle of Loch Lomond British and Irish Eagles whiskey, Tony. Thank you to you and Loch Lomond for that. And as the game edged closer, myself, Phil, and another 50 fans went up to the Nick Foles bar in Patrick Avenue. Now, if you listen to what I just said there, I said myself, Phil, and 50 other fans. That's because we made sure that there were 52, i.e. Super Bowl 52 amount of fans in the Nick Foles bar for that game. It was a bit of a superstition thing we thought about when we realized we'd overbooked before the game and actually just fell into place.
We?
Me? We went up to the Nick Foles bar and, the rest was pure joy. Love bites, hugs, tears, disbelief, pure joy, Eagles chants, everything you can imagine and fathom from what was, in my opinion, the best Eagles experience of my life. Like, it's not even close. I remember 2017. I wasn't part of the British and Irish Eagles. I didn't know you guys, and I was with some other fans of NFL teams. I wasn't there with another Eagles fan other than my wife. This is special. It felt like the culmination of everything we've built together, everything we've done together, the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours we've put into this and enjoyed together and gone through together, the highs and the lows, Wentz being traded, Jalen Hurts coming in, the Super Bowl loss, the team collapse, the team not being good enough this year, and then coming out with the Super Bowl victory. I know I'm putting it into lots of words because I speak a lot, but I'm struggling to try and put that feeling into one phrase or meaning, because it just means so much to me, and I know it means so much to Tony, you, Phil, and Mick. So I won't go on any more about our experience. Mick, let us know how Glasgow was, and then once you've done that, we'll have the advert read, I suppose, and then we'll get Gio on the podcast as well.
No problem, man. Well, I mean, Glasgow was Glasgow. You know what Glasgow was like? Glasgow is just like Philly, but in a like 3,000 miles east. But we didn't have as big as a group that you had in Passyunk. Obviously, there's a small Scottish contingent. A lot of people can't make it out for the Super Bowls for various reasons and such and so forth. So we weren't the biggest group in the pub, but by God, we were the loudest group in the pub. And that's what matters. We were there. We were on the balcony. We were singing. We were chatting. We were drinking. We were having a good time. We were smoking cigars. We had dog masks. We had an absolutely brilliant time slagging people, pointing at them, shouting at them, screaming, shouting, drinking. Amazing. Just exactly what you would expect from a Glasgow watch along. And everybody there, I'm sure, enjoyed it. Everyone thanked me at the end of the night how great it was, and obviously how great it was to win the Super Bowl, but everybody loved it. They said they can't wait for the next watch along. I'm sure there'll be more when we're on next season, because the Eagles will be all over the television next year. I'm sure. But what an event! I'm so glad I went. And also, I just wanted to shout out the people at home who were watching, that couldn't make it to these watch-alongs and were watching it via the group chat, because I opened the group chat and there was like 1,000 messages, and it wasn't even half time, and I was just like, wow, that place is booming. I can't even begin to imagine how everyone's feeling at home just now, just buzzing in the living rooms. And like the thing that makes the British Irish Eagles what it is and what we've built over the last couple of years, that's it. It's everybody in that WhatsApp group. It's everybody at Passyunk. It's everybody at Glasgow. It's Eagles around the country. That's what it's all about.
The only fucker in NOLA.
Yeah, and then that fucker in NOLA. And actually, when he was talking and he said that he phoned Matt during the game, it gave me a flashback, because I totally forgot that happened, Tony, because Matt started passing the phone around, and he just you screaming, your face just screaming on the phone. You probably didn't hear a word any of us were saying. We're just screaming back at you, but
not a thing. But I knew what was going on. It was just brilliant.
So that was Glasgow, right?
I love it. Just memorable experience from everyone, and you're so right. That WhatsApp group has been sensational this last few years, but even more so now as we're expanding as well. Just while we wait for Gio to join us, I know he's joining at 9. Why don't we touch on one of Tony's questions that he posed when he was giving his experience of what it was like watching the Eagles in NOLA, and that is, at what point during the game did you feel like you could relax? And Phil, because we've all hogged the mic for 24 minutes, why don't we let you actually say something on this podcast and tell us how at what point in the podcast did you feel like you could in the game do you feel like you could relax?
I think it's got to be the same for everyone. It's the Devontae Smith touchdown, I think, and admittedly that puts us up quite high, and at that point it was obvious it was over. But I think not until that moment, just in the third quarter sort of thing, that kind of, see if the second half starts the way the first half went. It did. We got another touchdown, another turnover, and it just felt like that was the moment. It's like, there's no way back for them. The guys have. It's not like they had a really good first half and they struggled to keep it up in the second. They just came out exactly the same in the first half, and you just wanted to see more of the same. And as soon as you saw that, it was over.
I mean, yeah, I was similar. I was just trying to figure out because Twitter just went down there a second ago. I was trying to see if I could get it back up there as we were live. For me, I really, 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 really struggled to feel like the game was over until nearly the fat lady song. when it was 33 and 0, even a small part of me was still a little bit concerned that Patrick Mahomes could come back and that they could still do it. I remember you know the Patriots game, and I think at the sideline at 27-0, there's some videos of the Chiefs players saying if the Patriots could do it, we could do it. I still wasn't overly like I was confident. I was confident the whole game, but I wasn't like all in on this was going to be a win until after we scored again. It did feel like that play. It did feel like that play from Jalen to Devontae was the play that kind of sealed it, and certainly after the fact it does. But I do remember being live and feeling still not 100% sure.
I'm the same, man. I'm exactly the same. I felt like, see, because the way it went last time, I just felt like I couldn't let myself think that it was over. It was like a heart over mind sort of thing for me. I was in my heart. I was like, this is over. But my brain was saying like, Mick, you can't celebrate this too early. If you celebrate this too early, you never know what's going to happen. And even though I thought, yeah, I'm the same place as Phil, same place as you, Liam. The game was over at halftime. It was definitely over at half. And then I said to one of the guys that we were with, I can't remember who it was. I drank a lot of whiskey. Okay, I drank like I took a flask of whiskey with me actually to drink after the game, and I drank it all on the train on the way in. So that was my night. But
That's amazing.
I remember saying to one of the guys, I was like, if they come out because they got the ball to start the second half, if we force them off the ball without any points, that's game. And then lo and behold, we got them off the field, and I thought, that's it.
Yeah, it's funny that comment that just came up on the screen there, Mick. I think probably resonated with a lot of people. DeJean was when he had the feeling. Bawn was when I knew, and the dagger to Smith is when it sunk in and the party started to happen. I don't know about you, John, but my party started to happen about 6 p.m. in the afternoon. Certainly partied harder again after that happened, for sure. Tony, what was your moment? What was your moment in the game where you could rest easy?
I'm just looking at the comment from Gary here, and that same mental block from Phoenix, 10 points up, even at halftime, 24-0 up at halftime. I remember that feeling so well from Phoenix, where we're up at halftime and you're thinking we could actually do this. I just wouldn't allow myself to do it. And as I said earlier, it was the Jake Elliott field goal that put us 37-6 up. Don't know what the significance of that was, but that was the moment. 10 minutes to go, 31 points up, that I'm thinking, just go and enjoy it now. Don't stress. Go and enjoy it. These will be the best 10 minutes of your Eagles fandom. Don't be stressed about it and just go and enjoy the moment. And that's exactly what I did by phoning my wife and my daughter and started crying. But well, there's only 164 people that I've just admitted that to, plus you 4 Muppets. So
absolutely love it, and thousands more when they listen back. I think this is the best time to bring in Gio the podcaster into the podcast. Gio, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you guys? Go Birds!
Yeah. Go Birds! We're
go
feeling
Birds,
good,
brother.
Dude, I'm excited.
Gio, how are you, man? It was great seeing you at the NFC Championship game, and also, well, it wasn't the NFC Championship game; it was the Jags game, wasn't it, Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jags game. And yeah, how was it? First question for you, Gio. Before we get into anything, how does it feel for the Eagles to be Super Bowl champs?
Man, it feels so great. I feel like all the fans, this means a little bit more to them than Super Bowl 52 because I feel like, at least for me, I feel like we all battled through this together. I mean, all the trash talk that was on the Eagles this entire season. Saquon Barkley can't do it. He's injury prone and everything like that. I mean, this one just feels a little bit more sweet, and especially for me too, being able to be there.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's my next question. But before we go any further, a lot of people know who you are over here, but there'll be some who are hearing you for the first time in the UK and Ireland. So, Gio, just tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, where we can find you on social media, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube, The Giovanni Show, and then everywhere else, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, as Gio the Podcaster.
Gio the podcaster. That's what we know you as, buddy. That's what we know you as. That's great stuff. So, look, I want to get into it pretty much straight away. So, before I ask you about like how it was like being there for the game, there's something that I noticed 2 years ago that I saw 2 years ago, which even in the last 24 hours has just come back to life with NFL films, and that is 2 years ago you asked Jalen Hurts that question, and it was from my memory at the time the only question where he looked, turned around, and just answered with his heart about everything, and gave you the. And I remember thinking at the time, as somebody studied journalism, I was like, "How did he do that? Like, that's amazing!" like, and then to be able to then go and interview Jalen Hurts again, and I again watched the question that you asked him and saw the look of remembrance and realization in Jalen's face as he turned to you and answered the question. What was that like to do to interview someone like that at one of the most important moments, a hero of yours? Can you explain what that's like to us?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, this whole event meant so much to me that I went and got it tattooed on me after the fact. I mean,
We've seen.
this was just the best event. This was kind of my big break, I've been telling everyone. So, I think going down to the media room after that tough loss 2 years ago, I was really emotional, crying, all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into that season from me. And then just thinking about, this team and how much they've put into this season. All the work that I do is just a small fraction, but to be there with them and celebrate the low that they were going through,
Mm,
not celebrate, but go through the low that
yeah.
they were going through with them. It really just meant the world to me to be able to ask Jalen the last question before he stepped down from the podium. They had said one last question, so I had to yell Jalen's name a little louder so he knew I was there. So asked him what his biggest lesson was, and he said to cherish the moments that you come so far with these people. And then kind of he there were so many different lessons in that one
He was like
question
learn
or
from
that
it,
one
wasn't he?
answer.
He was like, to treat every experience as a learning moment and get better from every experience. And if you do that, you'll only continue to get better. I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
sentiments like that, is that something that you've tried to live by since then as well?
Yeah, so I watch this answer probably once a week minimum.
Amazing.
It's something that
So
inspires
I
me
probably
daily.
butchered it.
Yeah, so I think the coolest part of it is when he does that Jalen Hurts look of I'll be back at the
Yeah.
end, and he's like, I'm gonna paraphrase here too because I don't know it word for word, but he's like, you can either use these moments to learn from, or you can be down and out about it, and I know what I'll do. And that, I
Yeah.
mean, that you just felt it in your heart at that moment in that room
I
that
get goosebumps
Jalen,
just thinking about it, like just like
yeah,
listening to you say it again.
you just knew that he was gonna, come back and get it done. So I think to be able to be there for the loss, to be able to come back 2 years later and just immediately know. So I fly in on Sunday and then I go to opening night on Monday. And I will tell you that atmosphere, that room, I told my mom, it's wraps. We already won the game. I'm ready to go celebrate.
Wow,
Like,
that's amazing.
this team just I've never seen a team so focused and so locked in.
Mm,
I think with the Chiefs, there was a lot of, you know, Taylor Swift, this and that kind of distractions that were adding on to them. Where the Eagles, they were staying very locked in and very focused. If it wasn't a football question, they didn't want to answer it. So I think that was the main thing for the Eagles, and to just be able to talk to Jalen. I remember I got there 2 hours before the players had even gotten on the podium. So I fought for my position up front, and I think
Yeah.
that's what meant even more to me, was to be able to be there, sit there for 2 hours, see Jalen come out and then talk to him. So,
Did you crawl through some legs to get there, Gio?
it's funny because my mom will always say that. She'll always say he'll just go and crawl through the people's legs. It's
I hear that.
actually
I hear that's what Zach Berman does as well. Sorry,
yeah.
Zach.
So
I love you, Zach.
and that's basically what I have to do, basically. But luckily for me, there was a gentleman who was a photographer for the NFL, and he said we had just stricken a great conversation, and he told me that I could get in front of him, so it's perfect.
That's awesome, man. Look, question from the chat here, Gio, from Gary. Welcome, Gio. How is the tattoo healing? First question, and then second, did Reed and Coop make you an honorary exciting white while you were there?
Yeah, so the tattoo's healing great. It was very painful. I
Yep,
suggest.
first one is.
Oh yeah, and I suggest if you're gonna get a inner thigh tattoo, like when it got to the inner thigh, I was not mentally prepared for that. So I just
Start the other way around.
just mentally prepare yourself when you're going into it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so yeah, I had to wear the exciting white because I went up to Coop on Tuesday. They were doing press conferences at their hotels every day, and so I got there probably 3 hours early. Got to get in front, right in front of Coop. He walks up. I'm like, Coop, and he looks over. He says, "Hey, me and my boys back home are actually big fans of you." And I'm like, "What?
Yeah, that's
What?"
crazy.
And so it was just, that was such a cool moment. And then I asked him, I said, how was it to be so embraced by this team immediately from VG calling your name and then being here with them at the Super Bowl? And then also, what does a guy like me have to do to become an exciting white? And he said,
There you
we
go.
can make you an honorary member. So
That's amazing. That's amazing. Gio, I feel like you've lived the hopes and dreams of so many fans around the world already. And what are you like, 17 now?
yeah, 17.
Yeah, I mean, man, gee, you're killing it, brother. And all I'll say is, I remember what I said to you when we were at that game, that's at the tailgate. Like, just keep going, just keep trying, just keep pushing, keep pushing. Especially in the journalism industry, if you don't keep pushing, you won't get there. So keep it on. Anyway, still got loads of questions for you.
Yeah.
So talked about, like, your moments around the game. Were you in the stadium for the game? Were you watching
Oh, yeah.
outside? Yeah, I thought you were. What was it like? Tony's been describing to us, because Tony here was fortunate enough to be there as well.
Yeah.
As we were hosting watch alongs. Give us just tell us what it was like to enjoy and to experience, and go for it.
Yeah, so it all started early in the morning, trying to fight for parking. When you're trying to fight for parking in a city where the Super Bowl is, it's always going to be rough. But we found parking.
You
We
can't
got
crawl through
there.
legs for that. That's a different time. It's kind of
Yeah,
a skill set. Yeah.
yeah. And so we had gotten there. We're fighting for parking like 4 hours before the tailgate even starts. So then we went and we got breakfast. We got beignets, which if you ever go to New Orleans, you have to get the beignets. They are just a staple of NOLA.
Nice.
And then yeah, so we got breakfast, and then at 12 we went over to the Philly Sports Trips tailgate. And
I think
so
Tony's trying to show a picture of a vignette. I think is that what you're trying to do, Tony? It's not working, buddy.
they're like they're like square donuts with powder on them. So they're great though.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Where
so,
did you have your Gio?
huh?
Where did you have your beignets?
Oh, I went to Cafe Du Monde.
Yes, I went there
Oh.
on Monday morning. That was my victory breakfast.
Dude.
How off the chain are those beignets?
Dude, they're so good. And the people there are even better. I mean, that New Orleans culture, it's such a close-knit family there. It's great. It's almost like being in Philly, but it's different, but it's almost like the family that Philadelphia is. So,
Right.
I
Community vibe.
yeah, it was very welcoming. And so, we went to the Philly Sports Strips tailgate, which
There
you
you go.
already know.
Yep.
They are the best, and they have the
There you
best
are.
tailgates. We
Shout
met
out to Vince. Shout out to
yeah,
Vince.
shout out to
Julia.
Vince. Huge shout out to Vince. We met Rob McElhaney and his wife
I
there.
saw. That's
Dude,
insane.
it was crazy. And so, yeah, so we got there. We met the governor of Pennsylvania. Like literally everything. Like
Who is
we're
this
just
guy? I mean, come on, Gio. What
we're
is going
meeting
on?
everyone, and then we head over to the game, and I had not gotten nervous up until the point where I just
Right.
saw this red sea of Chiefs fans walking into the game. And then I look around when I sit down, I'm like, all these people spread out, and now it doesn't look like there's so many. And so once the stadium packs, it's just green everywhere. And it
Right.
is, I'm like, yep, it's a home
Because
game.
the
We're
Chiefs
winning this.
fans are the Chiefs fans probably aren't drinking. All the Eagles fans are still outside getting pissed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
They've been
why.
up since 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I
And
love that.
so yeah, I mean, it was super crazy to be around all the Eagles fans. And then yeah, I think that was the moment that I knew that we were going to get it done, was just to see the home field advantage in NOLA.
I love the confidence. We asked each other a question before you jumped on, which was, what was our moment where we knew during the game that it was over? Sounds like you knew a week before on the Monday when you landed, but
Oh yeah.
there must have been a moment in the game where you went, right, that's it, game.
Oh yeah. Coop interception.
Yeah,
That
that
set the
early.
tone. That
Like
set
it.
the tone for the game. And I remember I posted a video, and I always go back and look at this because this was just such a great, like, I think this is the best moment I've ever had in sports, because
Oh,
you could just see the reaction that I had to it. Everyone around me is like jumping up and down. I'm like freaking out. Like literally I'm like, Coop! Like it was crazy.
now you've experienced two moments like that this year, like two really special moments.
Oh yeah.
The other was with us when we were there watching the Saquon Barkley hurdle. And what the way you just described that feeling and looking around and seeing reactions is exactly how I remember watching the Saquon Barkley hurdle, because we were behind the end zone. We were looking down and seeing him turn around and do me there. A lot of people didn't notice until they re-looked back on the Megatron. But I remember looking around people next to me and then coming over and high-fiving you and all sorts. Was it a
Yeah.
similar moments? Do you put one above the other?
Oh, dude, I think they're both tied. I think those are
Yeah.
the best moments I've had in sports history, and I think especially like after going to that Tampa Bay game when it was like 120 degrees out, and we just got absolutely clobbered in that
That was
game.
the worst game
And
ever.
dude, to see just awful football and then just see what we have seen together, with the
Yeah.
backwards hurdle, and then now the Coop interception, which will, be one of the greatest things that a white person has done in football. So so
Do you know what's funny as you say this, Gio? Like, I'm thinking in my mind, we're both very positive people. We're glass half full people when it
yeah.
comes to commentating on the birds. And when everything is going bad, like, E-Rock is the same, right? When anything's going bad, we always find the good in it. We always look for the good. We always say it's going to be fine, right?
Oh yeah.
Now now we're we're gonna have these two moments after how bad we were in the fourth. For the rest of our lives, we're gonna be wrong more than we're right, because we're always gonna point to this year and say, well, look what happened then, and we turned it around. Just you wait and see. And this is a special year. Like, this isn't gonna be repeated the way it's happened again and again and again. The Eagles may be dominant for a few years now, and please God they are. But this hasn't done any favors for our positivity and what people are going to react to us about.
Oh, I agree, and I think I'll be the most confident person in the world. Then I've said this a million
Yeah.
times since the Super Bowl. I'm just still on cloud nine, but I want the Eagles to go and get the 3-peat and make
Yeah,
history.
baby.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
I love it. Right, Gio. I want to pass it to. Oh, Phil, have you got a question? I was going to pass
I
it
was
to you
just going to
guys,
say,
but
I don't know
yeah.
what Gio's exposure to sort of social media from this side of the pond is like. If you've ever seen the videos of British soccer fans watching the England football team during one of the recent tournaments, where the goal goes in. I think the big screen gets used to sort of make other memes, but in general, the original video was sort of England scoring against Germany in the semi-final of the Euros or whatever it was, and absolute just beer just getting thrown everywhere. Just absolutely just like chaos. Like I've never seen. Like you'd rarely get scenes that epic in even in this country. But for me, that Cooper DeJean pick six was kind of pretty close, because that's the only time I've ever been in Passyunk and beer has been thrown, because we
Some
just
of it
couldn't.
wasn't beer.
Because people just couldn't believe that this was happening. Like that was just like a holy, what the hell's happening? Like we've just intercepted pick six, Patrick Mahomes. So I don't know if you see that video. If you ever look on social media, you should take a look. But yeah, for me, that moment was just absolutely incredible, with just getting absolutely drenched in beer and passion.
Yeah, I need to get to one of those soccer games. I mean,
Oh.
I've seen
You should come
the
over, man.
chants and all of it. So
Have you got a team, Gio? That was actually one of my questions on the list. Sorry, Tony, I know you're going to jump in with a question, but just while we're there, have you got a team, Gio? Have you got a UK soccer team?
I don't.
Right.
I
Okay. Stop you there. Don't go any further. So we did this thing. We won't do it now. We'll get you on. We'll get you on another podcast in the off season. Okay. So 3 years ago we did this with Jamal Singleton, Eagles assistant head coach, running back coach, and he didn't have a team. And at the time, Mick put forward Glasgow Celtic, which is his team. Phil put forward Manchester United. Don't even worry about them. His team. I put forward Newcastle United, and before Tony joined us on this podcast, there's a guy called Anthony, and he put through Nottingham Forest. We all pitched to Jamal, just like we will pitch to you when we get you back on the podcast, why you should choose our team, or obviously you can choose another team of your choice. Jamal took on Nottingham Forest as his team. They'd won loads of trophies in the 70s, and they'd won nothing since. I think they were still in the championship when he voted for him. And since Jamal's followed them, they've been promoted to the Premier League, and now they're sitting third in the Premier League, which is absolutely mind-blowing. It will be like a Canadian NFL team coming in and getting to the NFC Championship game in the space of 3 years. Right? It's crazy. So we'll get you on. We'll do that game if you're in the summer, and we'll get you a UK Premier League team or Scottish SPL team, if that sounds good.
Oh yeah, that would be perfect.
Awesome, Tony.
Gio, I'm going to take you back to the Coop pick six, and the guys have just been describing the energy that was in the various places that they were. I actually extend the Cooper pick six to the two plays before it, and just want to get your take on. There was the first sack of Mahomes, and the atmosphere and the energy in the stadium just rose a notch. And then there was the second sack, and it just rose another notch. Then there was the actual interception itself. Talk to me about that crescendo of noise as Coop ran into the end zone.
Yeah, so I think one of the craziest stats that I've seen is that we didn't blitz them once in that game, and we were 2 sacks away from setting Super Bowl history of sacks in a game, which is absolutely crazy, not blitzing them once. It just goes to show either how trash their offensive line is or how good our defensive line is, which I'd like to think our defensive line is just great, but I don't think that they have the best offensive line.
Their left tackle didn't have a good game, put it that way.
Yeah.
No,
it honestly, it really reminded me of that Kansas City Chiefs versus Tampa Bay Super Bowl where Mahomes was just getting absolutely clobbered that entire game, and where he I think there was one pass in that game where he was like falling and he threw it, and it was like everyone's profile picture forever, even though they lost. But just making him run all across the field this game definitely changed some people's opinion about the defensive line. But I think that really did set the tone. And I also think, when Cooper DeJean goes to receive a punt and he goes out and everyone screams Coop. Everyone was screaming Coop a little bit louder after that interception. Everyone was ready for Coop to have a game.
Indeed, you're absolutely right.
I'm trying to remember. Sorry,
Ju-
Tony, go on. Go, you go.
Sorry, no, on you go, Liam. On you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I'm trying to remember, in the NFC Championship podcast, didn't I say Cooper DeJean was going to have one of the biggest plays in the game? I need to
You
go back
did.
and look at that. I did, didn't I?
You
I just
did.
remembered I said that.
I listened to it. I listened to it just before coming on tonight because I wanted to know if I could take any victory laps about my predictions.
Yep.
And
And you,
there is a sequence. There is a
Okay.
sequence where you speak about Coop is going to have the biggest play of his life. That
I
then
can't
takes
believe
me
I
in.
don't remember saying that.
That,
I just
then
remembered it.
takes me into the keys to victory is turnovers and how
Yep.
the turnovers are going to come from just behind the linebacker core and into our secondary. So that's my victory lap, Gio. You have led me into it brilliantly, my friend.
That's amazing. Right, Gio, floor is yours. I got you for 5 more minutes, and then we need to
Yeah.
get into the rest of our podcast, if that's okay. What questions have you got for us, buddy?
Man, I think I just got to ask you guys. I mean, when you look at these guys, you look at, the Jalen Carters of the league who have been getting into kind of scruffles with Nick Sirianni. Do you guys think that kind of fueled this team to be better with the media painting it out to be as bad as it was? Because I think, honestly, being around, high school coaching and everything, it can get a little rough. I just think,
Yep.
tough love is tough love. So I need your guys' opinion on this because I've been needing so many people's opinion on this.
So I'm just going to give like 20 seconds on this because I could probably answer for the next 30 minutes. Because I've been a big proponent and defender of Nick Sirianni all season. And this is my victory lap as Tony will go away. And I said on multiple occasions, he was taking the heat off them all the time and making sure he consistently took the heat off them and also the tough love stuff. So that in the media, all the heat came on him, which allowed them to go out and play the way they needed to. Now, some people disagreed with that, and that's fine. We're all out to our opinions. Opinions change and they flex and all that kind of stuff. But for me, like if I could expand the question a little bit to, or the answer to, I think Nick Sirianni did absolutely everything he could for every single player on that team to help them win, and if that made him look like the villain, he didn't care.
Yeah.
Gio, I want to come in there and I want to know how much Liam has paid you to ask that question.
No, I have not.
I also want to say that if that's Liam's 20 seconds, then that bodes well for Mrs. O'Neill. But I think for me, it's definitely a necessary evil. Like whatever we talked about during the season, all the times that we've been out on Sirianni or not, or anything like that, all the criticisms, all the positivity we've had. The Super Bowl was a culmination of everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's all come together. The good of Nick, the bad of Nick. It's all been there for a reason. And for me, I guess, when all said and done, there's no point picking apart whether it was or wasn't. We won the Super Bowl, man. And it's because of everyone, collectively, fans, players, everyone around the organization. It doesn't matter, man.
Yeah.
Matters to me. But anyway, Mick.
Yeah, I mean, the media will make a lot out of players like, chirping back at Nick and like showing discourse in the team and all that and make it a big story. I mean, that's always going to happen. We've seen it with AJ Brown. We've seen it with Jalen Carter. In fact, AJ Brown had a moment during the Super Bowl where I think he chirped back at Nick Sirianni. Obviously, it's just been totally wiped aside because we won the game and no one cares anymore.
Interesting.
But that sort of thing's always going to come up. But it's an emotional game. It's an emotional game. These guys are just like they're going to like 100% all the time. Like all that you see Saquon back on the sideline. He's doing this. Stay up here. Stay up here.
Oh, yeah.
Stay up here. So the emotions are high. It's a highly emotional game. Like all of us, we're watching it and we don't feel a tenth of what the players are feeling on the field. So they're entitled to do these things. I don't mind as long as they're out there giving every single piece of their ability for the Eagles. They can do what they like.
I think it's a great question and good answer, Mick, because in the UK, if I think about soccer and I think about Ireland, from my experiences anyway, you wouldn't really chirp back to the manager that often. Not in my experience.
No, never.
I played to quite a good standard of of football. I might have flexed.
Oh,
I played quite a good amount of soccer. So that respect, and I'd say also into rugby, even more so, in cricket, even more so. You would never chirp back on the sideline at your manager. You would never be seen to have that. And I think it's a good question from Gio. And I did not tell him to ask that question, Tony, because it does give us in the UK and Ireland and Scotland an insight into the difference of the emotional aspects of the sport in American football than perhaps we see in some of our sports in the UK. Because you're right, like you would not see that. I mean, if you see that on the sideline in a Premier League match, it's front page news, across the whole country. It's not part and parcel of what happens every week in every game. So yeah, I think that's probably a big difference. As you say, you've experienced that in school as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just it's such an emotional game, and to be able to go that far with someone. I mean, that happened in the regular season. Imagine how emotional those guys were in the playoffs. I mean, behind closed doors.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I'm sure Big Dom has had to break up many a
Oh
scuffle.
Yeah, that's a lot we don't hear about, probably. Yeah, but
Gio,
you saw how
sorry.
emotional the players were during the player speeches before the Super Bowl. If you watched you've watched it, seen the footage, and even like CJGG, a guy who just does not stop talking. He talks shit all day long, and he's in tears in front of his
Yeah.
teammates, and it's highly emotional. I'm getting emotional thinking about it, to be honest.
Mackay Becton, that picture
And
of
Mackay
Mackay
Becton on the
Becton.
field,
Oh, yeah.
Smitty as well, and embracing Jalen when they knew the game was over. Oh, right in the feels, lads, right in the feels.
Yeah, I'm getting it now. Tony, you look like you had something to say there.
I do. I just wanted to get this in before Gio rushes off and leaves us. And it's just it's a slight change of direction, Gio. You and I, you won't remember this, but you and I first spoke on Twitter 4 or 5 years ago. Now you were just a young boy, now turned into a young man feeling your way in life, and you had a school assignment where you had to design a T-shirt, and I think that was your first ever T-shirt. It was "Life is Pod." Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
And I had it delivered to Scotland. It's probably the most expensive T-shirt I've ever bought in my life. Once I'd paid all the taxes and the import fees and the carriage.
I know that's not true, Tony. So don't even try it.
It was more expensive than a Jalen Carter jersey is now. But Gio, having watched you grow from being this really inspirational boy into an even more inspirational young man, having been through what has been some considerable adversity, whether that's physically or online, how have you kept going? And for a 52-year-old man and some 30 and 40-year-old guys on the screen, what's your nuggets of inspiration for us? What keeps you ticking in life?
Yeah, so I think the main thing that was really shared to me last week from some people at the NFL Network was no dream is ever denied, it's only delayed. So I think after hearing hundreds and hundreds of no's from companies, whether it be because I'm too young or because, this or that, or there's a better fit than me, just throughout, I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years now and I'm still going. I know there's a lot of people who think I make bank off this, which is not the case. I'd like to see that money, but yeah, so I think
we see none over here. This is all a hobby for us. So.
Oh yeah,
Liam sees some, Gio. The rest of us don't. He's just...
Maybe by way of some tickets, Tony.
That's his business class over to the link.
Yeah. I work hard in my personal life.
Yeah. And so I think that's another thing is just you have to be super passionate about something to be able to be successful in it. And so I think if you're truly passionate about something, then the money won't matter. And I think being broke and doing this for 10 years now has been better than if I was doing something I didn't like and being rich. So I mean, I love
Experiences matter more than money, Gio, and you have certainly had your fair share of incredible ones, and I, for one, am no doubt we're going to be seeing you on TV screens in the future, commenting on Philadelphia sports as your day-to-day job, and as someone who's moving over to Philly soon, and you're moving back to Philly soon.
Oh,
We were
yeah.
chatting about it yesterday. Looking forward to catching up with you and seeing you go on that journey. And I know everyone over here is rooting for you as well. And listen, thanks so much for joining us today. And yeah, look, we want to get you back on, buddy. We need to
Yeah.
get you in a Premier League team.
Of course. Let's do it.
All right, give us an E. Hey,
EAGLES.
Eagles.
go Birds, Gio. I'll talk to you
Go
later,
Birds.
buddy. Thanks for coming.
Thanks,
Yes.
man.
Absolutely incredible. Look, great time for us to go to a very short ad break. So Phil, if you can do that, we'll be back in 60 seconds. Go Birds.
Celebrate victories, rally through challenges, and bond with fellow fans as you toast with a dram of Loch Lomond single malt whisky. From tailgating gatherings to watch parties at home, Loch Lomond whisky becomes an essential companion, enhancing the moments that make football so extraordinary. It's the perfect accompaniment, from the joy of victory to the bittersweet moments of defeat. Loch Lomond offer a wide range of malts, with their flagship perfectly balanced, and signature expressions Inchmoan and Inchmuren to suit any taste palette. Celebrate greatness on and off the field this season with a perfect balance of Loch Lomond whisky and Eagles football. From the first pour to the crowd roar. Fly Eagles fly.
Just sensational. Tony, you need to stop posting messages like that in the chat. I need to compose myself before coming onto a live podcast. Gio, the podcaster, what a guy, what a legend. So thankful that we get to call him a friend of the show and a personal friend as well. And can't wait to do many more work with him in a year and see where he goes. Have you ever met a more knowledgeable 17-year-old about the Eagles who seems mature way past his years? I haven't.
In short, Liam, no.
No.
He is humble. He is thoughtful. He is evidently very kind and generous and thoughtful. And I think in certainly all my years, I don't think I've seen anyone come through, the adversity that the guy's faced with such aplomb and dignity and just courage. He's such an inspiration to all of us.
He is. Well said, mate. Well said. Thanks, Jill. We'll speak to you soon. All right, let's get it. We're an hour in the podcast. We got 468 people watching live. Hopefully you're not all just leaving now that Gio's left us. And you're going to listen to the rest of the podcast. So we're going to go into the next part, which is, as I said earlier, the sexy. Oh my God, that's sexy. And oh God, it's all sexy, which used to be called the good, the bad, and the damn right sexy. It's all good. It's all great. Let's get into the Birds and the individual players who made this game. And before I'm going to go back to front here in what we've got covered off. And Phil, I'm going to come to you because you've not had a lot of chance to speak so much so far in this podcast, and that's mine and
Busy
Tony's
pressing
fault.
buttons.
You are busy doing the producing,
The
and I love it. Now, Mick asked me on a podcast I did with Mick what my biggest concern was for the playoffs and for the Super Bowl, and I was struggling to think of what it was, and in the end, I came up with Jake Elliott, Phil. And can you just talk us through while I take a break to the restroom as well? Jake Elliott's performance in the Super Bowl, how amazing it was, and how clutch he came up compared to the season. And as a follow-up question to give me enough time to get there and back, what are the Eagles going to do with Jake Elliott in the offseason? Has he now cemented his place, two-time Super Bowl winner? No matter what, does he not get dropped? Because he had a bad year before the Super Bowl, or is that all that matters? Over to you, my friend.
Yeah, so to take a little bit, obviously, I seem to have muted. Someone muted my microphone, then it wasn't me. Anyway, what I was going to say was, So to take a little flex that Tony and Liam have already had their opportunity in the last podcast, we were discussing about if Jake, if the Super Bowl came down to a field goal to settle the game, would we be happy? And of course we would be, but I don't think any of us wanted it to go down to that moment. I think it would have been the worst best case scenario we could have had, sort of hoping that Jake comes through. And in the end, and I remember muttering under my breath, saying, "Fuck that! I don't even want to go near Jake. I want it to be a blowout." So the flex is it was a blowout. I was sort of thinking, let's just not even leave it up to Jake. Let's go and smash them. And boy, did we do that! But in the interest of the question that Liam's obviously asked me, it was the most points by a kicker in a Super Bowl, guys. What were we worried about? I mean, it's the joint most field goals made in Super Bowl history of 9. Jake's done it in 2, and his compatriot is Harrison Butker, funnily enough. But he's done it in 4 or 5. It is now. So Jake has been more clutch in the Super Bowl than any other kicker in history, and I think that's incredible. I mean, we all know that's about him, but I think when it comes down to the line, you don't want it to be resting on a player that's had his struggles this season. So both points of view are completely valid, but my God, did he have the game of his life just when we needed? And I think it was, for me, I don't know about you guys that are still here. Liam's obviously still away at the moment, but the first extra point. I don't know how I was feeling, but I was incredibly nervous at that moment. And that was the moment I think it went straight through the post. And I think he even had a field goal that got iced, and it was a penalty that we got pushed back another 5 yards, and he still smashed it through. And I think that was maybe the moment. So going back to that question about when did you think it was our day, I think it's when Jake was just smashing them in for fun. What about you, Tony?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same as you, Phil. There was that trepidation when he stepped up to convert the PAT after the first touchdown. But you're 100% right in what you're saying. He was not just on point and so cool. He was on point and so cool on multiple occasions after fouls. So I watched the game back in full yesterday, and certainly on 2 occasions that I can remember, there was fouls. One pushed him from 35 yards to 40. Another one, I think, pushed him from 45 back to 50. And he was just on point. There was one, I think, that he just shaved the right-hand post. And I thought, oh, that was a bit rocky.
Do you reckon he was just fucking with us, Tony?
Yeah, probably it's like that.
Someone mentioned there might have been an injury. Am I the only one who heard that on the grapevine? He might have been dealing with an injury this season.
On the what, Liam? On
grapevine?
The grapevine?
What did I say? Grapevine? Well, I'll tell you what. There's some grapes being drunk here, lads.
That famous Marvin Gaye song, you heard it on the grapevine.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
No, I heard that as well. I heard
you
that
did,
as well.
Okay.
That
I don't know if it's true or not.
Some sort of groin injury or something like that during the season, and it's maybe a reason or an excuse why he hadn't been hitting them all year.
Maybe you got one of Gio's podcasts and got a little bit too close for comfort. Good stuff. So yeah, I mean, thanks, Phil. I didn't hear anything you said, but I'm sure it was really impactful.
I just spoke about how terrible you were for 30 seconds. Don't worry.
Oh, great, cool. So what had happened to me here during this podcast was I'd let one of the cats out earlier on, and it's freezing at the moment, as you all know. It's probably snowing up in Scotland. And I've had the door open for the last hour and 7 minutes, and I've no socks on. And Katie's upstairs, so I've been looking around to see if I can catch her eye to get the cats in. And I honestly think I might have frostbite on my toes. So I've got some socks on, and I'm all good. That's a beautiful sound, Mick. Love hearing that. Where do we want to go next? Do we want to go Jalen Hurts? Do we want to go Vic Fangio? Do we want to go Sirianni? Has anyone got any preference?
Let's
Mick,
go defense.
Let's go defense. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Mick. Why don't you pick up on the defense? Because I know in the Loch Lomond moment of the week, Tony's going to talk about the defense. So, Mick, talk to us about Vic Fangio and this number 1 defense and how impactful it was for this game against the Chiefs.
Where do you start and stop with this defense? Like, Vic Fangio deserves a statue outside Lincoln Financial Field for what he accomplished this year. Unbelievable. Do you remember how bad it was with Sean Desai? Do you remember how bad it was with Matt Patricia? By the way, good luck, Ohio State.
Can't even say his name out loud.
But do you remember how bad it was at the crumble, the tears that we had to the end of last season? To then we bring in Vic Fangio. Yeah, it didn't start off very well in Philadelphia. Remember all the tweets from all the Dolphins players, Dolphins fans saying, "Oh, good luck. Nobody likes this guy. He treats his players like shit." No, he doesn't. He just trains them hard. He drills these players into what they need to know, their assignments, where they need to be on the field, what they need to do, and execute. And that's what he got our defence to do this year. From like bottom of the NFL defence to number one nearly all year. Number one and that was one of the main reasons I felt so good coming into the Super Bowl was this defense. You know, I've got my Jalen Carter jersey next to me. He's got special players, but no one was talking about the rest of the special players across the roster. They were saying, yeah, Jalen Carter's good, but who else have they got? Well, Vic Fangio, it doesn't matter who else they got. He went and pulled a guy from the Saints special teams and made him into a fucking all-pro. That's what Vic Fangio does.
Mick, can you just quick before you go on? Can you mention the Miami Dolphins there a second? Just remind me the last time they made it to any sort of final.
Oh, they haven't won a playoff game in 25 years, mate. 25
just want to make sure we got that in there for anyone
to playoff game. Shout out to Dave and Phil if they maybe catch this stream at any point. Our mutual Dolphins friends. But where was I? Vic Fangio has this defense drilled, absolutely drilled. Gio was just talking on the podcast about the defensive line and how dominant that they were and how dominant a performance that it truly was. And they were getting to Patrick Mahomes. They were making him see ghosts. And just to put some numbers to that, I wrote some. I know you've got notes down, right, guys? And you've done a lot of really good prep, and I've pretty much just
drank whiskey.
Yeah, and drank whiskey. But Eagles' generated pressure rate was 38.1% in the entire game, right? Even that is huge. That's massive, okay? But that's the entire game. In the first half, it was 47%. This is according to Next Gen Stats, which was higher than Mahomes' completion percentage. So we had a higher pressure rate on Mahomes than he had completion percentage in the first half. And it got as high as 52.4% during the game. And that's zero blitzes. That's playing cover 4. That's dropping 4 DBs into the back. Take away the big play. Take away your speedzers down the field. Take away the big play from Mahomes. What has he got underneath? What can you do with Zach Bond? What can you do with Oren Burks? What can you do with Cooper DeJean? And we found out during the game, 2 fucking picks. That's what we can do with those guys underneath when Kelsey is having an absolute shitmare. So big up to this defense. I won't say any more because there's a lot to cover during this podcast. But come on, defense, man! Defense wins championships.
Shall we relive one of those particularly impressive defensive moments, lads?
Oh yes.
On, so here's Mahomes. What's he got left? Pressure again. Decked! Ball is out! And the Eagles have it! Milty Williams with a strip sack. Philadelphia takes over.
Unbelievable. Oh, hairs on the back of the neck standing up already. Tony, I can't leave this without giving you a mention. Go on, have your say on the defense and the performance.
What, the defenses win championships, Liam?
That's the one, buddy.
Yeah, we can have a lot of debate about how good Jalen Hurts has been in the run and how clutch he was in the NFC Championship game and, of course, the Super Bowl. We can also talk about Sirianni, and you backed me into a corner that I'm going to have to talk about one of them very shortly.
Great being the host,
played,
isn't it?
Well played, that man. Well played. However, we spoke, I can't remember when it was maybe week 6, week 7, week 8. It was around about then, and Jalen hadn't had a great game. The offense was misfiring. I really wish I could remember what game it was and what pod we spoke about it on, but the defense were lights out. And we said on that pod that if we get to the Super Bowl, it's going to be because of this defense. And I still stand by that. Mick has said it with much more aplomb and much more passion than I ever could. But I think what he's done is he's encapsulated that unit, that ethos, that excitement, that energy that the defense has brought to the team that's allowed the offense to misfire from time to time. I am still 100% behind my that conviction that defense has ultimately won us that championship, notwithstanding some fantastic performances from people in the offense, which, Mr. O'Neill, you're going to make me talk about in the not too distant future.
Yeah, love that. And I think, on that podcast, I said over the last 10, 15 years, there's been a bit of a swing, and offenses have won championships. And I think you can make arguments for both during this game and during the season. You can talk about Saquon Barkley and offensive line being a key reason the Eagles got to the Super Bowl. You can definitely make a shout for the Eagles defense being the reason to get to the Super Bowl. I can make an argument that Jalen looked after the ball, which helped us get to the Super Bowl. So why don't we leave it on this? Good teams win Super Bowls. And this team is a good team all around. And I'll let you talk about the leader of that team in a minute. When I let you talk about Nick Sirianni, because that's who I'm going to choose to let you talk about. But first, allow me to just talk about my hero for the Eagles, and that's Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts' performance in this game was just exceptional. Phil mentioned earlier on in the podcast, it was reminiscent of the performance, see it, Tony? It was reminiscent of the performance that he had in 2022 and what could have been. And I was watching some of the films that Gary, thank you for sending me. I get a message from Gary every 2 hours of a new Sirianni or Jalen Hurts video to send, and it was the Jalen Hurts video that was released in the last 24 hours, and the first 2 minutes it's Jalen Hurts talking about. It sounds like he's talking about after this Super Bowl win, and how thankful he is to the team and how grateful he was of it all together, blah, blah, blah. And halfway through, you realize he's actually talking about after they lost 2 years ago and how humble he was. And Gio talked about that earlier when he was on with us, when he interviewed him. Jalen Hurts is an elite football player. And he's an elite winner. I'm going to put to bed any talk of Jalen Hurts as an elite quarterback or anything like that. I don't need to say it anymore. No one needs to say it anymore. It's done. We won a Super Bowl with him. Any talk was, unless he wins the Super Bowl, it's all for nothing. And he's won a Super Bowl, and the team have won a Super Bowl, and he was lights out. It talks about some stats. I mean, you guys have heard these already. 17 of 22 for 221 passing yards, 1 interception. Some of us like to think of it as a good tactical punt, putting it down there in the 5-yard line. But 1 interception, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 beautiful passing touchdowns, the bomb to Devontae Smith, which we're going to talk about in more detail, and obviously the kind of touch pass to AJ Brown as well. And then, of course, 71 yards on the ground. Do you remember a few weeks ago when we thought Jalen Hurts' knee was gone? And we were worried that, defenses were going to have to scheme against him. I wonder whether there was a little bit of the whole Mahomes, injury, fake going on from the Eagles organization. I don't know. They don't seem like the kind of franchise that do that. But anyway, look, nearly 300 yards total, exactly. 3 total touchdowns. He won the MVP of the game, and he deserved so. The notes written here by Phil are fantastic. It was expected to be the Barkley Bowl, and Hurts orchestrated the game like a maestro. Mahomes' first 4 seasons as a starter, he has 49 wins, 4 playoff seasons, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and 1 win. Jalen Hurts' first 4 seasons as a starter, 45 wins, 4 playoff seasons, 2 Super Bowl wins, and 1 appearance and 1 win. This guy is exceptional as a leader. He's exceptional as a quarterback, in my opinion, running the ball, passing the ball. He's exceptional at not choking in the big games. How many incredibly impressive quarterbacks do we see around the league choke in the big moments in the playoffs? And yeah, I can't. I think my point here is I don't think I need to come onto this podcast anymore and say anything about Jalen Hurts. because he's proven everything he needed to prove. And I think he is going to be a multi Super Bowl winning quarterback. And with that in mind, Phil, can I just bring you in on that? What are your thoughts?
Well, that stat I put up for you that's been kind of bounded around the comparison between Patrick Mahomes. That was a real kind of like stopping in your tracks moment for me. It's great that he's won. He's now the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions, 2024, 2025. If he goes back to the Super Bowl next season after, that's keeping on par with Patrick Mahomes. And it just when we over the last half a decade where we've considered Patrick Mahomes and how elevated he is in the media, how beloved, how amazing he is, the fact that Jalen Hurts has had a very eerily similar start, 4 wins in it. That's it. The first 4 years, and how incredible the Chiefs sort of rise out of Tom Brady's shadow to be the best quarterback in the NFL at the moment, at least. It says to me, it's like, wow, like if we really do build a dynasty, we could, well, Jalen Hurts could banish Patrick Mahomes to his shadow. Because
I like that take.
It didn't feel like during the season before he won the Super Bowl, it's almost like literally winning that Super Bowl has completely changed the dynamic for me and for everyone else. It should have, all the people who are eating humble pie, not just us, but the people in the media, Nick Wright and all those sort of, and I can't remember his name, but anyway, all the
Cowherd.
Cowherd on ESPN.
Yeah,
Cowherd's turned around to say that Jalen just did what he needed to do when he's not elite, so he can set off.
But the fact is that initial start shows that they've had a similar start. So if the Eagles manage to maintain this what they've built this season into future seasons, actually, wow, we've got something really special on our hands, and it really kind of was just a moment of realization for me.
And before I get Tony to talk about Sirianni, I'm just conscious that we've all talked loads and you've not had much to talk about. Can you just dive into Sirianni first? Just touch on it. In the same breath that you're thinking about Jalen Hurts, and has he expelled? You weren't a big anti-Sirianni person. You weren't a big anti-Jalen Hurts. Surprisingly, Phil, you're on the fence with both of them until something happened to put you on one side of the fence or the other. I was on one side of the fence. Tony and Mick were, on the other a little bit, not so much change throughout the season. Do you feel similarly about Nick Sirianni now? 2 new coordinators in their first year winning a Super Bowl hasn't happened since 2000 for the Ravens. Do you think the Eagles can win no matter who the coordinators are because of the culture that Sirianni has built and the team they have, of course? Right when I was going to get Phil for his moment to shine, of course, his feed decides to freeze, or he just went to another planet and was thinking about Sirianni. Did you hear me, Phil?
No, it kind of did freeze for a brief second. It was very intermittent. Just sorry, repeat yourself.
Oh, basically just saying, like, do you feel the same way that you've just described about Jalen Hurts?
About Nick Sirianni?
About Nick Sirianni, like, are you also off the fence a little bit with him now?
Well, I kind of echoed that when we had Gio on moments ago, when I was like, I'll accept his warts and all for what Sirianni is. The bits I don't like, the bits I wish were different. What do I know? All that together combined was a massive factor in us winning the Super Bowl, and also the interactions between Sirianni and Jalen on the podium, and subsequently in the parade and everything like that. Whether it's forced or not, I don't believe Jalen forces anything. I don't believe he's fake in any sense
win a
of the
Super
matter.
Bowl, it all goes out the window, doesn't it? Anyway,
It does, but it just goes to show, like, yeah, they've had. I think Jalen maybe has had the same realization that sometimes you have to sort of make it work with the things that you don't necessarily like all the time.
I agree.
With the things that work well, because if at the end of the day, if we do end up having a dynasty, if they do end up sort of going on some sort of crazy run of Super Bowl appearances and wins and anything like that, then who gives a rat's ass what Sirianni is or isn't like? Whether I'd invite him over for dinner, whether I'd go for a beer with him, whether I'd want him coaching my son's football team. If it works, it works.
Feels like you're saying the answer to all those is no, Phil. But that's
the moments. That's the things that we've been querying about. Is there's like that there's a bit it's a bit jarring, but screw it, I'm not in the building. It's clearly working. The players love him. That says everything. Jalen is working with him, and that's what matters. If we go to more Super Bowls, then it's immaterial to me.
And even immaterial now because we have won a Super Bowl with him, and that's only the second in our history in the Super Bowl era. Tony, bring you in on Sirianni.
Yeah, so I think everyone knows my early season, mid-season views on Nick Sirianni, and I'd actually extend them back into last season. But Phil has written some amazing notes, which I am going to go through, and it goes something like this. Nick Sirianni is a champion, and what a thing that is. A year ago, it looked like...
I'm not putting any emotion into this whatsoever.
I didn't put that there to write you a script, Tony.
Listen,
come on, man.
Listen, I have got some humble pie to eat. In my very moderate defence, probably around about week 9, week 10, Nick Stocky's chirping at fans and chirping at opposition fans and snide remarks in the press and things like that. And whatever it was that he removed from his shoulder, whether it was a bag of McCain's, whether it was a bag of potatoes or whatever, Nick Sirianni blossomed into the flower that he expected his players to be. And I think to Phil's point, whether I like the person or whether I don't, he is elite at the job he is now doing for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think, there's people in my work who I don't necessarily like, but they're bloody good at their jobs. And I think that's the thing in life. You don't need to like a person, but boy oh boy, I respect the job that he's done. And since taking on that kind of reinvented position as the true figurehead, as the CEO, and he properly gave that autonomy of the offense to Kellen Moore and focused on rebuilding what an elite locker room needed to look like, whether that's by culture, whether it's by values. He got what at points looked to be a bit of a dysfunctional 53-man roster into a glued together immovable object. And here we are. I think his ability to motivate his guys and cultivate guys into studying hard and playing hard and buying into the Vic Fangio defense, which couldn't have been easy because some of these, regardless of how big they are, some of these defensive guys are very strong-willed and fundamentally, if you believe everything you read, can be a bit lazy as well. So that must have been a culture shock that Nick has got them to buy into as well. For him to be able to get 53 guys to set aside their own stats and their own accomplishments and play for their teammates first and foremost. Now, that might just be an individual thing of the likes of Saquon Barkley, who we've seen readily taking one for the team, stepping out, letting the next man up come in and get some yards. I'm pretty sure that Sirianni has been the backbone to that, and that's patently the reason that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie's kept him coming into the season, because by all accounts he should have been sacked at the end of last season, but thank goodness he wasn't. So I have sufficient humble pie to eat. I've eaten a couple of slices on it just now. You know what? He might not call plays, but what he does for this team, and actually there was a hint that he did call a play or at least intimate a play, which one of us is going to talk about when we come on to the sexier and fucking sexy as we go through the pod. But like Sirianni, I doff my cap. You're part of it. You're one of the reasons that we have won this Super Bowl. We're not winning despite you. I actually don't think we're winning with you. We're winning because of you. Thank you.
Oh my God, I need that clipped. I need
Shut
that clipped.
face.
That's
Nah, no, don't worry, Tony. Your secret's safe with me.
And all the people watching live as well. Excellent. Tony, well said. Well said from all of us, surprisingly, because we're probably all half cut now. drinking on this celebratory podcast. I've got a whiskey, some wine, and a non-alcoholic free beer, just to give some non-alcoholic liquid into me. Mix. Have you tanned the whole bottle of whiskey now? Is there any left?
Man, I'm
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Cool. Look, we've gone through the main guys. There's so many players who made plays on the game. So why don't we get into the Loch Lomond moment of the game? Just before we do, I just want to shout out another one of our sponsors, which is Passion Avenue. Passion, we mentioned at the start of the podcast, put on one of the most unforgettable nights in American sports history in the UK, in London, and the atmosphere they generated, the generosity they give us alongside Loch Lomond to allow us to host watch-alongs there, to make sure that we had 52 people there in the VIP Nick Foles bar. How poetic that we were there in the bar named after the Super Bowl win, with 52 people from Super Bowl 52, that we were able to watch them as a group there win it. And I know there were other members of the British and Irish Eagles down in Battersea, some who've been on trips with us before, and all around watching. So just want to shout out to Passion Avenue. Thank you for being a sensational, how would I describe it? Like, to represent the brand of Philadelphia in the
partnership.
UK, and to represent Philadelphia sports fans in London, when they come over, and we know and hope you're going to be expanding into other territories as well. So shout out to Passion Avenue. So right, let's go for Loch Lomond moment of the week. Why don't we go for Phil? Why don't we go for your Loch Lomond moment of the week, and I will not steal any of your thunder, sir.
Well, it's kind of been it's been drip fed into the conversation so far tonight. It's a no-brainer. I don't even know why there are other options on the table for the Loch Lomond Player of the Week. I'm joking. They're all great. So it's just good to relive them all. And
remember, Tony decides, Phil.
Well, anyway, what better way to make my case? Where before I get into the play itself, let's just relive it for a second.
3rd and 16. Mahomes rolling out, looking, firing, intercepted, picked up by Cooper DeJean, gets a block. DeJean is in, touchdown. Wow.
Look at Sirianni.
Case closed, man. Case closed. But to give it some serious dues and context, obviously, it was the moment in the game for me because of, being a touchdown and a field goal up isn't anything. And I know a lot of the podcasts before the game were talking about, and you yourself, Liam, in our last podcast said, if your Eagles are up by two scores into the second half, like, do not start celebrating. But this felt different. This felt like, oh my God, like we are on the verge of absolutely punishing the Chiefs in terms of, it wasn't a back and forth. This was like a punch after punch after punch after punch. But this was the biggest punch of them all. It was early on. It was just like, now it's, Mahomes getting up, going, now it's my turn. Nope, here's another punch, and back down you go, because we're not allowing you to get into your rhythm. And there's also videos of the Chiefs defense just talking about how Mahomes has just been hit so much in this game, and you could see that they were deflated by it. But that moment just was the defining sort of encapsulation of all those moments, all those pressures, all those sacks. That sack pick six moment, you just can't get any bigger than that. And the fact that he managed to return it, like I said to Gio, beer was absolutely everywhere, just jumping around, not caring whether your pint was spilling over, getting covered in beer, because I think it felt special. Like, you don't want to allow yourself, like, we're talking about moments where we knew we'd won, not that we thought we'd won in that moment, but in that moment you were like, this is so different than 2 years ago. This is a million miles from where we were. And to have Cooper DeJean on his birthday, come on, you're going to deny the Loch Lomond Player of the Week to a birthday boy? I mean, guys, don't be cruel. But yeah, just to put a full stop on it, it just felt like that was also the moment where the officials factor that we were so worried about came into it. Like, the officials can affect a game, we know that, with penalties.
Especially
But
after the AJ Brown 4th down.
Exactly. And
I felt
in
like
that moment, it
shot
was
after
just like,
Yeah.
there's
They
nothing
were paid a
anywhere.
favour after that, though, didn't they? There was
They did,
definitely
they did.
a dodgy
Yeah,
call on
yeah.
us.
But that was the moment where we said to the Chiefs, to the refs, to every other team in the NFL, it's like, we're going to win this on our own, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
Yeah.
I love that. And also on that play, like you saw at the start. I don't know if you can play it again, if
I
that's
can
possible.
play again if you want.
So before you
Oh,
play
no,
it,
again.
there's before you play it, watch the holding on the defensive lineman of the Eagles. So there's a defensive lineman who is held and pulled down to the floor at the start. So if go on,
and also watch as Nick Sirianni's running along the sideline, he gets clotheslined by one of his coaches.
Okay,
right,
let's go for those two things now.
3rd and 16. Mahomes rolling out, looking, firing, intercepted, picked up by Cooper DeJean, gets a block. DeJean is in, touchdown. Wow.
Did you see both? Because it's the other angle where when you're looking back where you can see him, but right before he throws on the same side, you can see the Eagles player just being manhandled to the
It's
ground.
just so good.
Beautiful. Should we just watch that for the next hour? Can it again?
I'll put it on again.
Play again.
Get some tissues.
Oh God. Right. So let's go for Mr. Burton.
Hard act to follow. However, we're going to give it a damn good try. So, this specific play, I don't think it's been spoken about enough, particularly when I think that this is one of the moments in the game where the stuffing really got knocked out of the Chiefs. So let me walk you through it. We have had the Cooper DeJean interception, pick 6. It's 17-0 first half. Everyone's heart rates are back to standard after that pick. There's been a couple of drives, a couple of punts, and we're down to the 2-minute warning. So we're actually in 1:47. Surely this is the moment with Mahomes with the ball, a 2-minute drill, knowing that he's going to get the ball at the start of the second half. This is his opportunity to go in at halftime, 17-7 down, come back after the half and bring it back to 17-14. I defy any of you who did not think that that was an absolute possibility, particularly after the learnings of Phoenix. So let me run you through it. Mahomes has got the ball in his own 6-yard line. There's 1:47 left on the clock. We've seen it before. He can score a touchdown with 25 seconds left on the clock, let alone 107. But let's talk about the play. The ball snapped. Josh Sweat absolutely wipes the floor, not for the first time with Joe Tooney, takes him about 10 yards back, straight into the eye line of Mahomes, forcing him to make a throw over the middle. And at that moment, my heart's in my mouth and I'm thinking, where's Kelsey? Surely Kelsey's got to be there, but no. This bald, beautiful Superman named Zach Bond comes flying through the air to make a catch that AJ Brown himself would have been proud of. What a beautiful moment, particularly when you consider seconds later, Jalen Hurts is throwing a dime to a foot in front of AJ to hit him in stride, and with just enough room for him to turn the corner and get into the end zone. Eagles, from that moment, are 24-0 up. They never look back, and even the most hardened pessimist, allow themselves to begin to dream that what was going to come could actually come. Zach Bond's pick against Patrick Mahomes over the middle, 1:47 left, was the defining moment in the game. And that indeed could well be the Loch Lomond play of the week.
BTA. I love it. I'm particularly glad you took out my Dwayne The Rock Johnson comparison, because when I wrote it, I wasn't sure that should be allowed in the podcast. So thank you for doing that, Tony. and well oratored, my friend. Cool. All right, I'm going to give you mine, and then we're going to come to Mick last because he's going to throw out a couple for himself as well. So, for me, there are two plays where the game was iced. There's the play that you just talked about, which I've already said. You know, I still didn't think then, or I still didn't think after this one for me personally. But when I look back on the game, there are two plays which just knocked the stuffing out of the Chiefs. There was the one you just talked about, and I don't think anyone needs to guess what the next one is. You touched on it earlier on, and there's lots of notes here, and I don't even feel like I need to read them because I can just visualize the moment in my mind. You talked about it earlier, Tony, when you said there was one play where Nick Sirianni, you could maybe suggest he was the reason the play was called. During the season, I believe this play was called 6 or 7 times, and every single time the ball was handed off to Saquon Barkley to run up the middle, make a spin move, probably jump over a player backwards, and get a big game. So you could see that when the Eagles lined up like this, the Chiefs were ready to stop Barkley with the run. They were ready to stop him with the run. And then if I move time zones for a second and move where we are on the pitch. So right now we're watching the Eagles line up on the formation. If I can move you over to the sideline at a similar time or a few seconds beforehand, we saw back in the film afterwards, you can hear Nick Sirianni on the microphone go, just call along with the Smitty. If we do it, it's game. And lo and behold, the ball drops back. Jalen Hurts drops back. All of a sudden, the defensive backs are shitting themselves because they realize, shit, this isn't a Barkley run. They turn around and Smitty's already a step or two behind them. And Jalen throws probably the best ball of his entire career in the biggest moment possible. An absolute dagger to Devontae Smith, who'd separated from the Chiefs corner, Jalen Watson. He tries to get the jam on Smith at the end, but he's just not there. Like, it was just perfect. It was in stride. It was over his head. It was in the end zone. It was magical. It was like time stopped. The timing was perfect. You knew as soon as that play landed in his hands, there were a number of things that began to come true. One, Jalen Hurts, if we didn't know already, is clutch and can throw a dime. That ball, if you look from where he threw it to where Smitty is going to catch it and where the ball will land if he doesn't, was 60 yards through the air. It might be a 46-yard touchdown pass, but through the air, that ball was 60 yards. It didn't even look like he put his welly into it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Jalen Hurts can throw a 70-yard, 75-yard bomb like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. I'm also not going to be on the other side and say Jalen Hurts is just good enough because he can do it when he needs to do it. I'm saying Jalen Hurts is good enough to win a Super Bowl. He's good enough to make the biggest plays, the most important plays, the most clutch plays possible to make that difference between winning a Super Bowl and not winning a Super Bowl. And I don't want this to just be about Jalen Hurts because this needs to be about Devontae Smith as well. Devontae Smith had a couple of games injured this year. As a player, he's playing the number 2 fiddle to AJ Brown. There's no denying it. We've had lots of conversations about it being a wide receiver 1A and a wide receiver 1B. And, that is the case. Devontae Smith is the 1B in that scenario. And then you factor in the moment we were talking about earlier where Jalen and Smitty were on the sideline afterwards. If you haven't seen that film at the end of the game, for me, it was just such an important moment for Devontae Smith in his career. This is not going to be a career where he's seen as a number 2 wide receiver. This is not going to be a career where he can step up when wide receiver 1 is out. This isn't going to be a career where the Heisman Trophy never went on to amount to anything other than getting a few 1,000-yard seasons. This is now a career where Devontae Smith is a Super Bowl winning, touchdown scoring motherfucking son of a gun, and he's got that for the rest of his fucking life, and nobody can take that away from him ever. Nobody can take any of this away from us ever. And just a huge shout out to that play, that moment. I know it's been that and the Cooper DeJean plays and played over and over again. I agree with Tony. I think the Zach Bond play is not being talked about anywhere near enough. So I think I'll just end it by saying, before Mick goes on, I'd be happy with any 3 of these guys to win Loch Lomond play the game, and fuck me, why don't we just give away 3? Mick, over to you, my friend.
Shall we watch it first, Mick?
Roll
All
tape. Roll tape.
Roll tape.
Comes in and makes a huge play. Now the Eagles get it back. We're going to run some clock, or maybe throw the dagger. Hurts going deep for it all. Devontae Smith. He has got it. Touchdown. Wow. Forget run the clock. That's the dagger.
Forget run the clock. That's the dagger. What a call. What a call.
What a call.
Excellent.
Tony, I am eternally jealous of you for witnessing that live, because just watching it on the replay more than a week later, I'm still getting goosebumps thinking about it and just watching it on a screen, never mind being in the stadium, feeling the atmosphere, watching Devontae haul that in for the touchdown that ended the game, that ended all possibility, that killed the Chiefs. You watch the Chiefs bench after that play, and they were like, "Oh God, oh God, it is definitely over now." They had nothing after that, absolutely nothing, and you couldn't pick a better play. And shout out to Nick Serra, shout out to Kellen Moore for taking the shot on first down, and then I will just extend that on to what I'm about to go on to with my Loch Lomond play of the game, and that would be multiple players, because I think this was a massive team effort. What I'm about to go on to won't win individually, because Cooper DeJean, Devontae Smith, I mean, these are massive moments that will live on in Eagles folklore forever. Like these are plays that you tell your kids about, you tell your grandkids about. They're like, "Oh, what were the 2024 Eagles about?" You'll show them this. You'll show them Devontae catching the ball. Like, that was the Alabama connection between Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. They went down there. They won the chip. They absolutely balled out. They absolutely balled out. But just to put some context on that play in particular, it came down to the Chiefs on a 4th down play before that, because they were desperate. They were desperate on the field to put some points up. What happened? It was a 4th and 5th. Patrick Mahomes, pressure in his face from the dominant defensive line. He rolled out. He threw the pass. Incomplete. Who was it? Do you remember who it was?
Avonte Maddox getting his
It was
flowers.
Avonte Maddox. It was number 29 who broke that pass up. Who saw that coming? Who saw that coming? No one. Nobody
I
saw
remember
that.
it.
We were absolutely destroying Maddox all season. Like, get Cooper DeJean in. Why is Maddox on the field? What does he do? He makes a vital pass breakup on 4th down to set up the first down for the touchdown dagger to Devontae Smith. Thank you, Avonte Maddox. You absolutely balled out. You deserve this Super Bowl win.
I think that's
Other players.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I think that's symptomatic. Sorry to interrupt, really am. But like the fact that we've not spoken about Avonte Maddox all season and pretty much forgotten about him as an Eagles player, that just goes to show how the team as a whole was doing, man. It's incredible.
Mate, it was a complete team, team performance. Everyone from the top down. You look at N'Kobe Dean going out and Oren Burks coming in to be that field marshal next to Zach Bond. How daunting a feeling does it have to be to come in during the playoffs and fill in for a guy who's playing at such a high level and replicate that, or even better it, because he had some pivotal plays against Washington in the NFC Championship game, if you recall from a few weeks back. But other guys I need to shout out. Nolan Smith. The Chiefs pulled a guard on a lead block play, and Nolan put him on his arse. He put him on his ass. Nolan Smith, the guy who says, "Oh, he's undersized, he's not a great defensive end, he's a bust." Nolan Smith balled out. He's been balling out the whole playoffs. He ended up with 9.5 sacks, I think, to end the entire season, like including the playoffs. Nolan Smith's trajectory is like flying high just now, and
UBG.
you know, he enjoyed UBG. You called out in the podcast, Liam, a few weeks ago, and what a call that was. When you said it, I thought, I don't know about that, Liam. I don't know about that one, man. But yeah, I mean, I've got to eat some humble pie there because, oh my God, oh my goodness, what a play that just to put a guard, an NFL guard on an undersized defensive end on his arse on a pivotal play again. Call out more guys, and I'll say Landon Dickerson. We saw in the NFC Championship game another, and this calls back to the Sirianni discussion that we had earlier on these guys loving each other, these guys playing for each other. We saw Landon Dickerson come into the game for Cam Jurgens because he was injured, and then Cam came right back in because Landon was injured. These guys playing through pain, playing through it all for each other, for the brotherhood, for the Eagles, for Philadelphia, for the city, for the fucking Super Bowl. And Landon Dickerson in that Super Bowl, he does an absolutely insane move. I'm not sure if you've seen this on the old 22 or some of the tweets that are out there, but let me just paint the scene for you. So Chris Jones is lined up in the 3 tech. He's shooting up the B gap. The Chiefs have another player lined up in the 7 tech, just outside Jordan Mailata. Landon picks up Chris Jones, hands him off to Jordan Mailata. Jordan takes the block on. Landon spins. He pivots. He does a fucking pirouette and picks up the stunt. What a play that is. That's underrated play of an offensive lineman, and that's why he got paid $20 million plus per year, and that's how Howie Roseman knows what he's doing with these guys in the trenches, because they are warriors. They play for each other and they make special plays in the game that you might not necessarily recognise because it's not the touchdown catch to Devontae Smith. It's not a pick six. But by God, what a play from this guy. What a play from this absolute giant of a man. And he says it all in his in the parade victory. He says, "Go fucking birds. Go fucking birds." That's Landon. Go fucking birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. That was fantastic. And it made me think again about, Tony's defense wins championships, when you're talking about the players that we made those plays, like Avonte Maddox and Nolan Smith, plays that we're not even talking about. The most podcasts aren't even talking about. I don't know if you guys know, but I haven't listened to an Eagles podcast since the playoffs started. Not one.
I've listened to every single podcast I possibly can since the Super Bowl ended. I've been feeding, man. Just like, give me every single podcast. Give me Colin Cowherd. Give me like the Nick. Give me Nick Wright. Give me like, just feed me. Absolutely incredible. And sorry, just to cap this off, Liam. I do apologize. I've been speaking
go
quite a while. But Saquon Barkley, number 26, wearing his jersey on my chest, wore it during the Super Bowl. I've heard a lot of the Chiefs shut him down, so we didn't do much in the Super Bowl.
Didn't he get nearly 100 yards overall?
Wasn't the whole game plan that the Chiefs had was to fucking stop that guy? Wasn't the whole reason that the Eagles were able to pass the ball on Kansas was because they were thinking about Saquon, because they couldn't get him out his head? See, Spagnuolo could not stop thinking about Saquon. They were just loading the box. The Devontae dagger, that was because they were thinking, this is a run for Saquon. He better not burst one off and just head to the end zone for 60 yards. Well, fucking Devontae Smith done it.
The
But
Devontae
it all
dagger.
comes down.
I love that.
It all comes down to Saquon. It's like, I mean, his presence alone, and it came through on. I think it was one of the copies of
The film.
the mic'd up stuff. And there's a good portion of that with Jamal Singleton, and he's like, you see Saquon say like, keep for everybody above because he's such a team leader, he's great. But there's a part where Saquon maybe he's feeling a little low. He's not done a lot in the game. The Chiefs have held him to like 2.5 yards per carry, something like that. And Jamal, yeah, there you go. Gary Walker said it all. They've built the entire game plan to stop you. Remember it. Remember it.
Brilliant.
The whole defensive plan was to stop Saquon, and that in itself is massive. Never mind the sideline catch that he had. Never mind the little chunk plays he had here and there. His presence alone was enough to take us to where we needed to go. And
The promised land.
26. Fucking 26.
Well said, Mick McGivern. What a pleasure it is to have you back on the podcast, my friend. Well said, even after a whole bottle of whiskey. Very impressive. I think that's probably the most impressive part of that speech. Tony, you look like you wanted to come in. There you go. Oh, that's the big boy, the 21-year-old.
Oh, that's the bad
Oh.
boy.
I'll finish that one off tonight as well.
Good stuff.
So the award then, Liam.
Go for it, Tony. The floor is yours, my friend.
Do you know, it's not easy. It's not easy, but
if you can pick one of the videos, Tony, that would be a good excuse for us to play it again.
So in other words, don't pick mine then, Phil. Yeah. Do you know? Whilst Mick was talking there and having.
Can I just apologise for a second, Tony, just before you go on, because before the podcast, I did steal Tony's Loch Lomond Play of the Week, and he'd already done the prep for the Devontae Smith touchdown. So thank you, Tony, for allowing me to have that with Jalen and for you to take on the bomb one.
Yeah, well, I've got the last laugh now, mate.
That's true.
Whilst everyone was talking, it does make you reflect on how lucky, how blessed the four of us have been. Everyone that's listening and every Eagles fan the world over, by way of the number of plays that not only in the Super Bowl that we can reflect on this season, but the events, the occasions, the situations, and the experiences that the team's given us this year. You guys being in Philadelphia for the Riverdo, all of us being together in committee room number 9 in Glasgow to watch us beat the Baltimore Ravens. Liam, you and I at the NFC Championship game, which was just an absolute kicking, to then top it all off and be able to talk for the best part of 35 minutes about 3 particular plays and then a series of other plays, just heralds what an incredible season it's been. To crown it with a Lombardi trophy is just really a kind of pinch yourself moment, and I don't think, if I'm truly honest, it's absolutely sunk in yet. I've always maintained in the year that you guys have thankfully had me on the pod and I've been able to contribute a bit, the Loch Lomond Play of the Week, or the moment of the game, is one that gets you off your seat. And actually, I never sat in my seat at all during the Super Bowl. So actually, the whole game is the Loch Lomond moment of the week. But the one that will live longest in my memory, and I don't think it will ever be topped. And I quite often like to flex the fact I was at the double doink game. That the double doink game for me was a Riverdo for you guys. You were there when that happened. The Cooper DeJean interception, pick 6, is going to live with me. Is going to live with me forever. And it wasn't just the pick 6 itself. It was the incredible contribution of that whole defense to sack Mahomes again. The blocking that allowed De Jean to get to the end zone, the celebrations after it, and to go 17-0 up in a Super Bowl, and that first glimpse of Lombardi hitting Jeffrey Lurie's hand has got to be the play of the game. Cooper De Jean, happy birthday, son. You're the man.
3rd and 16. Mahomes rolling out. Looking, firing, intercepted. Picked up by Cooper De Jean. Gets a block. De Jean is in. Touchdown. Wow.
Who's
Do you
the
know,
guy?
I've not,
Oh, sorry.
Liam, sorry, I've not heard
Yeah,
the
you go.
Merrill Reese. I've not heard the Merrill Reese commentary of that. How
No,
do we
nor have I.
how do we get our hands on it? We have to find the Merrill Reese commentary of
There's
that
a
one.
YouTube for that.
Is there?
Yeah.
We definitely do. Quick question: we might need to watch this again for this moment, unless someone knows. Who's the guy right at the end who gets the last block, which pushes your man out of bounds and allows Cooper to get right in the end zone? Because there's one
Wasn't
final
Trim.
block. I mean, there's another excuse to watch it again.
Yeah, I
The,
don't know.
the second
Sorry,
last
watch it
block,
again.
the second last block's on Chris Jones. I can't believe how bad he was.
Can we watch it again? Just right at the end.
Jones was
the
off
last
see-
one.
his
don't see
feelings
why
on the
not.
bench. It was.
Was it? Was it not on? Was it not Chris Jones then?
We're gonna have to watch it again, guys.
Yeah,
no,
we'll
I've-
say.
3rd and 16. Mahomes rolling out. Looking, firing, intercepted. Picked up by Cooper De Jean. Gets a block. De Jean is in. Touchdown. Wow.
Yeah, I still didn't get who it was. It was 66 who hit on the floor.
66. Yeah, 66 and 62. So it wasn't Chris Jones. I stand.
No,
corrected.
because it
Done
would have been the offense on the
Yep.
field. So
Yeah.
Oh,
I
right
know.
enough.
Watch
Yeah,
it again.
right,
Just
right.
to-
Forgot about
to make sure.
One more time. for
I'm
Rollins.
not sure who it was in defense when they did the block.
All right, guys. We are at the 2-hour mark, and that is the perfect time to end this podcast. We have so much more to touch on, not least Kellen Moore going to the Saints. The fact that the Saints are also interviewing our entire roster. I think the Eagles water boy has been picked up for a water boy interview job at the New Orleans Saints as well, because it seems like the entire roster of coaching staff has, including, according to Adam Schefter, our own Jamal Singleton. Jamal, if you're listening in, I WhatsApped you earlier. You haven't replied yet. I'm not expecting you to, buddy. So we're talking about Kevin Patullo, Josh McCown, as potentially coming back to be an offensive coordinator. You've got Jared Johnson, you've got T. Martin, you've got Marcus Brady, and we've got the outgoings that we don't know about. So we're going to take a little bit of a break for a podcast, give ourselves a couple of weeks, and we'll come back with some analysis of the coaching moves as we look into free agency. However, we are not going away, folks. We also have, if you don't already know, Mick's podcast that he's doing, the Road to the Draft podcast with Mick. They'll be lining up and they'll be going out. I think he'll be slightly more sober on those ones as they happen during the day, during the week. But I don't know, Mick, maybe you can open up a bottle of whiskey when you record the next one. Lunchtime when the kids aren't around.
I'll open up a bottle of whiskey if the Eagles manage to draft Abdul Carter somehow.
Wow,
Get this boy to
that's-
Philly. He loves Philly. Let's get this guy going.
If we get Abdul Carter, Micah Parsons, or Miles Garrett, one of those three, please. Without any further ado, thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of Tony's heart, from the bottom of Mick's heart, from the bottom of Phil's heart, for every single person who's been on this journey with us, not just from the start of when we're going to get emotional, not just the start of when we started this podcast many years ago, but importantly, as we fronted up our new look this last, year, 18 months. Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure having you part of this team, the British and Irish Eagles, and the future is bright for all of us. But thank you for everyone who's been listening in. Thank you for everyone who's contributed. Thank you for all the British and Irish Eagles members who come to watch-alongs, who've been part of fantasy leagues, Mick for doing the graphics, Tony for providing a wealth of knowledge throughout, for making us jealous during the Super Bowl, and also for the Loch Lomond partnership, Phil for the copious amounts of hours and time you put in behind the scenes that no one sees, and this podcast would really would not have a hope of even being still going if it wasn't for the selfless work that you do. Is beyond all of us, Phil. So thank you
Agreed.
for the three of you, and thank you for everyone who listens in. We are Super Bowl champions, boys. Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions, and with that, I'll leave you and love you. Go Birds, baby.
Fly, Eagles, fly.